Oh, yeah.
Much better.
Well, that's a good
Who set this up? Was it you, Captain?
I was not here.
Okay.
I was not present.
Can't blame me.
Activity reports, fellas. You have the
All
floor.
right, right into it. So we'll start with the incident cases year-to-date 2024. So in June, we have a decrease of 1.54% from 65 to 64. One, with 62 offenses coming out of that with the month of June. And you can see all the data that's broken down by each officer there. The arrest year-to-date for 2024, June is an increase of 16.67% from 15 to 18 from the month of May to June. Then you can see all the data from each officer broken down right behind it. Any questions so far? Perfect. Traffic stops. So in the month of June, we had a decrease of 2.9% from 69 to 67 traffic stops. 6 tickets were given out. That's an 8.95% chance of getting a citation for the last month. Then you can see all where the streets are, what the citations were, and the data data after there, and everything else that belongs with it. Collisions are up. They've been going up since the month of April. So in June, we had an increase of 14.29%. That's 21 from May to 24 in the month of June. So that's what we want to see a decrease in, but unfortunately, we are not. There's a lot of traffic on the roads, as everyone sees, that everyone's been driving around. If you haven't seen that, especially during the daytime, there's a lot of cars on the roadway. So you can see where the streets are on the next page there. Most of them coming out the usual South Main Street, Center Street, and then we got some other ones, North Main Street, are our main ones. Then you'll see the personal analysis report. I broke that down for the month of June, and then last year's stats for the month of June, and then the whole year, so that you can see everything. The breakdown that I look at for the whole year, right now, incidents, we have 305. Last year at this time, we had 334. So, and then what we had for arrests last year was 128, and we're at 88 right now. So we have a decrease in all that, which sometimes that's not a bad thing. So I'll get into the last month of the SRO report. So the month of June, they ended their school year on June 21st this year. They actually had a couple half days, actually 3 of them for the last 3 days due to the heat that really hasn't stopped for the summertime. I'll start with the high school with Detective Emerson that's in there. He dealt with some tobacco violations, a vehicle that passed a school bus, past tense assault, which actually happened at their home that he took care of, harassment from another student, and a report where hearsay regarding a bomb threat at the school that ended up not being credible at all. And then him and SRO La Rochelle had a runaway that they worked together on.
Captain, we didn't get the SRO reports in our packet.
I just got it today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
they got back. They're back into the schedule, so out of routine.
Gotcha.
So, so then I got SRO report from the middle school for Eric La Rochelle. So he dealt with a sex offense that went over to the CAC for an interview. It ended up being unfounded. He dealt with a vandalism crash up on in the parking lot of the art center, a minor one up there, a vaping in the bathroom. Then he dealt with a student making claims that he was going to start a fight on the last day of school. The parents were notified before, I think on that Monday or Tuesday, and then he wasn't allowed back for the rest of the week. So and then he helped out with graduation and participated in field day that they had for the middle school, which if you saw on Facebook for the school, a nice pie got him right into the face from one of the students. So, it's actually kind of funny.
Because it wasn't you.
Yeah, right. So, the other things you guys didn't get is that came out from the town was the gasolines. The price went up from May to June, $2.99 to $3.03, not too bad. We spent $493.78, and, 493 gallons, which total of $1,497. So we're at 35.9%. We should be at 52%, so we're doing really good in that area. So I did the budget too. I did that did I do that yesterday? I think I did that yesterday. So right now, overall, with our budget, we're 5.821% underspent, which is really good with the default budget and everything. I mean, a lot of that is due to our staffing. And our last thing that I have here is Prosecutor Morgan's court. So he had 6 cases that went up to court. 5 of them are really from driving offenses. 1 DUI, reckless op, license required, and negligent driving. And then he had a criminal mischief that pled guilty, fine of $1,200. So that's all I got. That's everything.
Hey, I'd just like to bring the commission's attention, especially to July 4th. As you know, this was my first July 4th as your police chief. I have to say I was extremely impressed with the police department. Most of these folks have done this quite a few years, and it shows. I was approached several times by many different residents, guests, friends, who wanted me to know how proud they were to show their police department to their out-of-town guests who came in. They were described as friendly, polite, professional. They did not feel a negative vibe from law enforcement like they've felt in other communities, and I just wanted that on the record that you do know that. As you also know, we all worked it, as is the case every year, and I was able to observe myself how they do their jobs on July 4th. Our day started with the parade. It's my first year leading a parade in the town of Wolfeboro. The relationship between the police department and the townspeople is excellent. And to watch how the officers interact with the folks on both sides of the street coming down in the parade was very reassuring. We did have a long day. It was a hot day, but so did everybody else that was out. But they did very well. We did make certain notes, especially during the fireworks event, of things that we want to tweak or adjust for next year to make it an even smoother event and to try to get the officers more in and around the folks that are enjoying the festivities so that there is more visibility amongst the crowds instead of just on the streets. What else? I did tell you last meeting that we went live with Power DMS, the computer program for policies. That continues. I actually have a stack more of policies for you all. And Investigator Shigori, Captain Olivia, and I did have a conversation about how we were going to have those approved and moved forward. There is an option to have the commissioners go online and address those there, but that does not solve the problem I need of, or not really a problem, but the procedure I have of having a master book that I have to have for accreditation. So for now, what we're going to continue to do is ask you folks to take a look at it, sign off on it if it's in your approval, and then we'll, what we do is we scan the signature block and we put it on the electronic document, so that we can still upgrade the document without having to go through everything all over again. and we can still make keywords in the document searchable for the officers and staff. So I'll get you that in the next couple days, and there's only about 6 of them, 8 of them at a time. We won't overwhelm you with 40 documents. You also were made aware that we started off officers O'Neill, who will be, we expect to be starting the academy in 2 weeks, week and a half?
Yeah, after next week.
A week from Monday, right? And he is, as he's waiting for his academy to begin, he is working with a couple of the other officers who are in FTO status prior to him going to the academy, so he can get his feet on the ground. And admittingly, we put him in the street on parade day and fireworks time. He seems to be moving along pretty well. Everybody seems to like him, and they enjoy having his company. Plus the fact he's pretty good at computers, which is always a helpful thing. Mike Robbins continues to go through the academy, and I've received no concerns or problems, so we're pleased that that's happening. I did notice the increase in collisions that the captain just referred to, and I did a little checking on them, and it's interesting to note that many of those collisions recently are slow-moving vehicle collisions or parking lot collisions. Many of these, there are certainly some that are high-speed, what you would consider a car crash, but many of them are reportable, but they're slow-moving cars coming out of side roads or pulling into parking lots and these types of things. Whereas when I studied a few months ago, we seem to be covering a lot of deer hits. So it tends to be a very seasonal thing as to where our crashes are. We're going to look into a couple of options as far as looking at different places in town where we're seeing this more often, and maybe studying why this is happening there more than perhaps somewhere else. The downtown activity has been, as you have obviously seen, steady. We've had a lot of really hot weather. Other than the last few days of rain, it's been a pretty good summer thus far weather-wise. The officers have been doing their foot patrols. As I remind you, they all have to do 1 hour a shift, which they've been keeping up on. We've seen the bike out a few times. We can do that when we have the personnel available still in a cruiser. So if we can put an officer on the bike and have them moving through the downtown, we take advantage of that every chance we can get. And the last thing I can mention at this point is we do have another series of oral boards coming up for those 3 final openings that we do have. Right now there are 5 possible interviewees, maybe 6. You were in a conversation today with someone, and that will occur on the 16th. And once that occurs, then we will then move towards the physical agility, and you know how that goes. Any questions? Nope.
We also finally got our drone,
Oh, yeah.
so it's upstairs, so we got to get and prepare for training on that, so that will probably happen sometime once August ends, and start working on that to try to get training on the drone and work with the fire department to get them trained on it too, because this is going to be a dual use for the fire department and us, especially crash scenes, searches. It has heat sensor in it, right?
Yep.
So it's going to be a great tool for us.
Could you just address about how we obtained the funding for that, and where that came from?
Yeah, so that came from the grant through the federal government, through the state. So it's all paid out through grants money, the whole thing. So we actually got that money coming back, which it came out to about 10.5 for the whole drone. and we get about $8,500 back for overtime. That's coming back.
Oh, that's great.
So we have a good amount coming.
Yeah. And again, that's a shared device, right, between the fire department and the police? For the fire
Yes,
department?
yeah. So we're going to share that with the fire department, because they'll use it too for certain
Oh, terrific.
incidents
Yeah,
that
that's
they need.
terrific. Good. You guys, any comments on that?
What- Commissioner items? What, we want? Commissioner items?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have an issue with the parade in that I think we can improve, and I'm not pointing at the police department. I think in conjunction with the town, meaning the Board of Selectmen, it may be time to start looking into some type of barricades for certain areas of town. Sorry, some type of barricades in certain areas of the town. I was at Pickering Corner, and before the parade started, the people were on the sidewalk. Not very long after the parade started, people were almost out to the yellow line to where the apparatus were going wide left. I actually went out and spoke to the officer and said, we're going to push these people back because, the dancers, people that take up a lot of room needed to get through there. The unicyclists was another concern. And I know in talking with one of the officers that was moving about through town, there were areas that they were trying to keep people pushed back, and those might be the areas that in the future can be addressed with some type of barricade or something, just to keep people back out of the roadways. I mean, it's the job of the police and EMS and fire for life safety. But as the town as a whole, they're hosting this event. I'd like to see it made as safe as possible. There was one float that came through, and apparently they didn't go to the safety briefing that they had for the parade because they were, I guess, decorating cookies or something for kids or people, and people were running up to this thing, and it was moving slowly. And I know that in the past, they've tried to get away from, throwing candy off a vehicle is one thing, but when people have to go up to the vehicle and it's moving along through the parade route, that's not a safe thing to do. But I just think we can make it safer. I'd like to see the barricades, if the town is amenable to that, just to keep the crowds back, because we have very large crowds, as I know you're aware. And I also know you guys did exceptionally well considering the amount of staff we're down. And things ran smoothly, but they were just, this is my personal opinion, but I think that's an area that can be improved upon. But I don't know that manpower is the issue, and I think manpower could be better utilized in other ways, and having the barricades would help, keeping, and I'm not saying you have to barricade the whole parade route like the Macy's parade, but places where we tend to have, like downtown and Pickering Corner and any other areas that you have noticed in the years that need to be addressed. So that's all.
I can make a couple comments because I caught most of what you had to say, but you're right there,
Oh,
and I
sorry.
can't hear you very well because of the mics and all. But I got the gist of what you're saying. Well, part of what we observed, and we did have a few minutes to communicate with each other after each of the events. So we had an after-event briefing and kind of a debriefing, if you will, about what they saw, what they want to change, any concerns they may have for next year, and to jot that stuff down so it gets taken care of. One of the major things that I wanted to do was to meet with the leadership of the parade itself and speak to a couple things that I had seen only because I've been in other parade venues. And unfortunately, I've seen a few events occur that were probably not something you'd ever want to see happen again. Part of which is at the end of the parade route, they just go. And they'll either go down, where did they go down?
They're supposed to go down to Clock Road and turn around right there, but some take a left onto Crescent Lake.
Yeah, and
pull into Brewster Academy.
There was a few that went down Crescent Lake, which were going back to the Clark Plaza, but they were not road safe to do so. And once they go through that at the end of the parade and turn, they're no longer in a parade. That's a concern, but I don't think folks had a plan when they get to the other side what they're going to do next. Parades typically, if at all possible, have a place to go to then figure out how they're getting the equipment back home, how they're getting the kids off the float and into a safe vehicle where they could be seatbelted and on their way, and that didn't seem to be happening. I hung out for a while at the end of the parade route to see how we were doing this, and I was a little concerned by a few things that will need to be addressed before we have another parade. This parade had 58 entries. It was a long parade. As you know, I led the parade. Captain Livy brought up the rear, and I was done watching many of the entries go by me before the captain stated, "I'm on the move." So that's a long parade. So with all that activity, certainly. The barricade issue is another thing. There was a couple of other issues. One was signage about parking. For some reason, we had half of the signs left over that never got posted. Luckily for this town, most of the people that come to this parade have done so before. They know we're not supposed to park, so they don't. It's just the few cars that you have to go up and tell people that they can't be there because there's a big parade about to come through. That is something we've already addressed in our debriefing, how we need to work with DPW a little bit better in the future to get all the signage up and the signage up appropriately so it can be reviewed and then questions can be asked. There's time left over for people. The barricades is another thing. There's a few places where barricades need to occur. And lastly, there certainly needs to be a conversation with some of the entries as far as cake decorating and the lawn chair folks and everything. They'll do a presentation in the middle of the parade, which will gather people to want to see it. And people, when they want to see an event closely, they get tighter and tighter. And then they're in the parade route. And then they have to move back. And so we have to come up with places in the parade route that's a good spot. They did try something this year that you may or may not have noticed. They had me stop 3 times. And that's to hopefully let everybody catch up. The first group in the parade were the veterans, and they were right on my tail the whole time. So I don't know what we were waiting for because they were doing quite well. But we did stop 3 times. Tried to keep the parade tighter than it had been in the past. But as you all know, by the time you get to the end of the parade, it's going to be the way it's going to be every time. People will, especially in an election year, you'll have a certain group of folks that want to go into the crowd, go back into the parade, go into the crowd, go back into the parade, shake hands, give out literature, what have you, and that will slow a parade as well. So there's a lot of these things that we've already noted in our after action that we are going to be discussing with the leadership of the parade. So hopefully that'll be addressed.
I will say, Chief, that I was very impressed, as I always have been, with traffic control following the fireworks. There's a large volume of people coming out of a lot of roads, and it was great.
Thank you.
It was well done.
And again, a lot of people that go every year. They kind of got it.
Yeah.
They figure it out. So we did well.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Kevin, anything? Thanks. A couple things. I wanted to touch base on reference to, I did myself over the last month, saw a couple of incidences at the crosswalk out in front of the golf course. And- Yeah, the crosswalk out in front of the golf course. So I just happened to see a couple close calls. And as we all know, it's somewhat unique in that spot where there is signs that indicate there's a crosswalk, but there's actually not a crosswalk. And so I wonder if you folks are interested in starting a conversation on this, and maybe we could look into that a little further and come up with some kind of solution. It's my opinion, and I hope you agree, that I think we really need to go either all in on it and do it right, or not have it at all. Instead of having it, because some people see the signs and they stop, and that's, I think, the problem. They stop fast, and the people behind them, that's what I observed, didn't know that people in front of them were stopping. And you can see a lot of times that they just don't know what to do. So you want to address that, Chief? Or you have any thoughts on that?
I will, to a point. I think that the crosswalk over State Highway is the responsibility of the Department of Transportation. And my experience in the past has been a letter from the Board of Selectmen to the DOT requesting a crosswalk be painted across a state way is appropriate. They will typically send the engineer for the area up to view the area, look how much distance there is. And the only time in a conversation I've ever had where they weren't as concerned about the amount of eye line or vision is for a golf course. Golf courses, as you know, typically, if they're big courses like this one, will cross a road at some point to play the back nine, for example. And that means it's a cart path as well. That's doubly dangerous as far as I'm concerned. And I've seen the bad side of those. It's not a crosswalk. There's a sign that says there's one that does not exist. So we're sending a mixed message. I think it's dangerous. Crosswalks are an interesting cat because I'm not really sure, but I would venture to say that a crosswalk is more for the pedestrian to know where we want them crossing, not where we don't want them crossing. If a person is standing on a curb at a crosswalk, then the law is pretty clear as to what traffic has to do. And it's that clarity I think we can accomplish by getting the state to stripe the road. It certainly is my impression that the signage that was placed in, presumably by the town, was done so with the intention of having a crosswalk. So I would volunteer to write a request to the selectmen to do so, or ask the commission to do so, but it would have to come from the Board of Selectmen to the DOT requesting that that crosswalk be attached to the roadway. And then we will make whatever efforts we can do to enforce that. But I think it will show, especially the folks that make use of the golf course, where the town wants them to cross the road and where the state wants them to cross the road to keep them safe. So we're not having people coming from all different directions as well.
You'll be able to understand what I'm about to say, but because I'm sure you've been by the Holderness School before and after, and now they have tunnels for students to cross the road rather than crossing the road to go from the main campus to the field house or the hockey rink or the main campus down into the Holderness Village there. And that would be the safest option, would be to have one of those large culvert-type tunnels there. It wouldn't impede traffic at all, and carts could go back and forth, and it would be safe, but the bottom line is, who's going to pay the bill for that, you know?
Yeah, and that area is certainly looking at some future construction issues anyway. Holderness, as you recall, is right on that corner. And they changed that whole corner anyway to go onto 175, and they took out parts of that road, so it wasn't quite as confusing. But the crosswalk that used to go across to the skating rink, you didn't see it until you were well into your turn, and it wouldn't have mattered if there was barricades.
Right.
All of a sudden you're there. So that was, the school opted to build the tunnel at that point. But yeah, there's many different options that you could use, but I think if you're going to sign it, you know, getting back to the original question, if you're going to sign it crosswalk, then you should complete that process and actually have a crosswalk.
Kevin, any thoughts on that?
Well, I would, I think we need to, communicate with the select body, to ask them to obviously contact DOT. I'm willing to write a letter. Chief, if you want to, unless you want to write it, I mean.
However the board would like it to proceed, I'll be happy to help.
Yeah, I think, one thing, I know there has been some discussion on that over the years. When you're downtown, people do mention, I've heard it before. And I think it does get lost on some folks where they say, well, they're golf carts. But people do walk, as we know. They walk and play golf. So they cross the street and they walk and play golf. They have their bags. So they are pedestrians. And so I would say, yes, if we all agree, if we do agree that this would be something we want to take on and ask the selectmen to write that, letter, or that we're in favor of them looking into a little further on fixing that problem. Before that, I'll make a motion to that.
Would you like a motion? I'll make a motion
Yes.
that you reach out to the Board of Selectmen and see if they'd be amenable to writing a letter to the Department of Transportation to address the crossing the golf course.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good, Chief? Good with it? Good.
Yes.
Thanks, thank you. Thanks, guys. One other note that I have is, I too received a phone call, well, I was on a business call today with someone from Alton, and they had an interaction with our police agency in reference to a lost wallet from one of their kids. And he couldn't be more complimentary of the agency. From the dispatcher he dealt with twice, both on the phone and in person, when he walked into the station, and the officer that was involved. He's from New York, he said, and he did mention that this is normally not the interaction he has where he comes from. So if you could pass that on to the guys and gals, we appreciate that. That's exactly what we hope for, so that's good news. In reference to the next meeting for the commission will be on Thursday, August 8th, 2024, 6 p.m. here at the Great Hall. Selectmen and Budget Committee,
Nope.
no one here today. Other business or public business, Bernie? No. So I guess we have no other public input.
Yeah, both of them emailed right before we came
Yes.
here.
Yep, we
You
should
see
mention that, yep. You did let us know they couldn't make it today. And do either of you folks feel we have a need for non-public?
I have several items.
And is that reference personnel or?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll accept a motion to go in the non-public under RSA 91A3A.
So moved.
Second it?
I'll second that motion.
Yep. Yes vote from everybody?
Yes?
Yes.
For me.
Yes. So we'll take a break while I clear the room to go into non-public session. Thank you.
Take that long to get the whole crowd out of here.